Flynn.
Present.
Ms. Johnston. Ms. Osiander.
Here.
Ms. Drummond.
Here.
Mr. Birch.
Here.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Here.
Mr. Starr.
Here.
Dr. Selcraig.
Here.
And Mr. Coffey is excused. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, will you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seeing no minutes, the first item for us is a mayor's report. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick things relating to the agenda. As you know, we don't like to lay things on the table if avoidable, but we've got a couple. One, of course, is a resolution that you should have in front of you that relates to asking the federal agencies to extend the time for us to respond to the designation of the critical habitat for the Cook Inlet beluga whales. This is such an important issue. We want to make sure that we're not handicapped by a lack of time in order to respond properly. And then there's one on the addendum that you see, too, that we hope everyone will support, and that is supporting the Alaska Native Soul participation in the SBA 8A Business Development Program. It's been such a success for certainly Alaska Native corporations and a lot more opportunity for other corporation and tribal entities that have not yet participated. We want to make sure that we weigh in on that at the national level. So just wanted to call special attention to those, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Let's see. Going through our agenda tonight, I'd like to point out a few things. If you look under the informational report, you'll note that there will be A versions of items E6, E7, and E8. And then E9, the administration's desire is to postpone that indefinitely because it will be replaced instead by E12 on the addendum. Additionally, you just received all the certifications on these bargaining agreements from the unions, copies of their certs, the latest being the IFF one that was just passed down. Excuse me?
Madam Chair.
Just a moment. A second, please. All right. I misspoke.
It's actually 13.
That's what the clerk was just telling me. I misspoke. I apologize. And it's not replaced by E12. It's replaced by E13. Thank you. I think that's all. There'll be, as we go down and hear announcements from individual members, there'll be some announcements on some items that I think will be postponed, but I'll let other members state that. It appears we've just received two vetoes on capital budget. Additionally, we received notification, Mr. Mayor, that there's going to be some joint work done with the state in terms of traffic enforcement and DUIs, which sounded good to me. Do you want to clarify a little bit on that?
Yes, I'm going to have Mr. Wheeler speak to that on the traffic enforcement, DUIs, the press release that we just released.
Thank you. Through the chair, assembly members, as you may have heard, we have a new position partially funded by grant funds through the state. It's a part-time position called the Traffic Safety Resource Prosecutor. This position will help train up prosecutors, officers in the field, provide outreach to local groups, high schools, and so forth with respect to the penalties and laws regarding DUI, and become an expert in handling DUI and OUI cases, specifically with respect to being able to identify persons who are impaired through the use of various drugs in combination with other drugs or in combination with alcohol to give us a higher ability to reach convictions in those cases where blood alcohol is not at issue.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing that I wanted to announce, our clerk brought to our attention that there was a specific code requirement that the legislative program had to be dealt with by December 15th. I conferred with Mr. Flynn, and basically there's a resolution before you. I've also conferred with the mayor that sort of announces a joint agreement to move ahead with that a little bit on January 12th rather than December 15th. And that's on the late on the table items there. I think that's all I've got.
I have a question on the legislative program. I
do you-
can't find where to.
Do you want, Ms. Drummond, do you want to?
I'd just like to speak for a moment. I had a conversation with a school board member this afternoon, and they'll be presenting their legislative program to us on Friday at the joint meeting. Does the same December 15th deadline apply to the school district?
No.
Okay. But we're in other words, we're looking to proceed with work on the legislative program without meeting that so-called deadline.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Starting committee reports, Mr. Klayman? Ms. Gray-Jackson?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as you noted, due to the, I guess, we'll call it intense work on the budget, we weren't able to address all of the amendments to the legislative program. So we'll accept those until the close of business on Monday. I believe it's January 4 or 5, one or the other. And Mr. Coffey and I will convene a meeting of the Legislative Committee that week, take them up, and have a final draft available for consideration at the January 12th meeting for your consideration. That's all.
Ms. Johnston?
There'll be a Finance Committee meeting Thursday at noon. We'll be discussing, actually the administration will be presenting the revenue forecast, the quarterly revenue forecast by the Treasury Department and other reports that we do receive on a monthly basis, and we'll be discussing how we approach situations where the budget has sharp decreases and how the Assembly wants to address that. Thank you.
Ms. Drummond, do you have anything?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Birch?
No report.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the consent agenda, on the addendum to the agenda tonight is the proposal regarding IDs for alcohol stores or for alcohol sales at packaged liquor stores. It is my intention to hold a Public Safety Committee meeting sometime between now and our meeting of the 19th of January. That's when it is set for public hearing. I anticipate pretty high public interest in this particular proposal. So we're going to do it like we did the Bears. We'll have an evening meeting here, only it won't be in this room because I understand as soon as we're finished tonight, the demolition begins. They're tearing down some of the damaged areas up here are going to be replaced before our next meeting. So we will try to find a date when we can hold it across the hall in the Wilda Marston Theater so that the public can join in and participate. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Starr?
I have no report.
Ms. Selkirk?
No report.
All right. Thank you very much. Motion for the addendum would be appreciated.
Move to incorporate. Second.
And
Need to move it. Hit the numbers. Hit the deal.
Should I do that again? So move to move the addendum to the agenda plus the late on the table items.
Second.
all right. Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, let me read those items. The first item on 9, Bravo 9, would be AR 307. This is a resolution supporting Alaska Natives' full participation in the SBA 8A Business Development Program. 9 Delta 25 is AM 747, purchase of library shelving for the Mountain View Library from Space Saver Northwest for $116,418.38. Under informational reports, 6A, there's an informational memorandum, AIM 131, special compensation for executive employees in the form of leave accrual. 7A is AIM 132A. This is an A version of another item on the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers Local 1547 Collective Bargaining Agreement regarding clarification of classification and wage rates, Appendix 1. 8A is AIM 133A, and this is an International Union of Operating Engineers Local 302 Collective Bargaining Agreement, clarification of Article 4.8 court leave. Additionally, item E12 is AIM 137, International Association of Firefighters Local 1264 Collective Bargaining Agreement, clarification of wages, Article 27.2.3 through 27.26 Employee Relations. E13, AIM 138, AMEA Collective Bargaining Agreement, clarification of Article 7.13.5A, Short-Term Disability. Additionally, for introduction, we have F13, AO 143, an ordinance amending Anchorage Code Section 10.50.035 to require identification check for on-premises sales by packaged liquor store license. Public hearing date is January 19th of the year 10. F14, AR 305 is a resolution accepting 6 State of Alaska Clean Water Fund loan agreements in an aggregate amount of $20,374,000. And this is set for the public hearing date of January 12th. F15 is AR 306. This is a resolution accepting 6 State of Alaska Drinking Water Fund loan agreements in the aggregate amount of $4,900,000. Public hearing date January 12th. F16 AR 308. Resolution appropriating amount not to exceed $595,000 from the Area-Wide General Fund 101 to the Area-Wide General CIP Fund 401 for the payment of interest on an interfund loan from the Municipal Light and Power Fund 530. Real Estate Services. Public hearing date is also January 12th. On the late on the table items, there's a resolution which will be A1. Resolution 309. This is a resolution recognizing and honoring Bart Malden. Item 9B10 is a resolution 310. It's a resolution confirming continued work on the state legislative program. And B11 is resolution 311. It's a resolution requesting an extension of time from federal agencies to respond to the proposed designation of critical habitat for Cook Inlet beluga whales. All right. The amended consent agenda is before you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. I'm going to go down and see what people would like to pull. Ms. Selkirk, start with you.
Can I come back? Can you come back to me? I'm still
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Starr?
So,
9 Echo 3 and 9 Echo 9. And 9
Okay.
being for the purpose of postponing indefinitely.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Starr. 3 and 9. Mr. Gutierrez? E9. Go ahead, Mr. Gutierrez.
Actually, I have nothing to pull, Madam Chair. I just want to.
All right. Mr. Birch?
I'd like to pull Resolution 9A1, please.
All right. 9A1
It's late on the table.
on late on the table. Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Give me a moment here. I'd like to pull 9 Bravo 1
Okay.
on the regular agenda, 9 Echo 6, 9 Echo 7, 9 Echo 8,
Thank you.
and let's see,
I think that's,
hold on, from the
you don't have to on that one.
From the addendum, 9 Foxtrot 13, and I think is that it that we discussed? of all the ones
Yeah.
we discussed? Do we have all those for the administration?
I think we're set.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
Nothing.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Clayman?
Madam Chair, I wanted to pull 9, Bravo 9 from the consent agenda just to be added as a co-sponsor. If that can be done without pulling it, I'm happy to go with that route.
9, Bravo
9.
9. I see no problem with that. Is there any objection?
No, Madam
All
Chair,
right.
in fact, we would encourage any and all who wish to co-sponsor on this one.
Okay.
Let's do everyone, Madam Chair.
Put me on.
All right. I guess, let me ask, is there anyone who does not want to be included?
Yes, we all went.
All right. Could you just add all of us as sponsors on B9? Thank you.
Thank you. I communicated with the clerk about that last week, but I never heard any response, and so I wanted to make sure we got included. Thank
All right.
you.
Anything else, Mr. Clayman?
No, thank you.
All right. Back to you, Ms. Selkirk.
Nothing to pull, but I do have a question for clarification.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that the mayor has vetoed the Pine Street project in my district. And is it correct that we have 21 days to decide whether or not we want to override that or work to override that? Well, I don't believe there's another, if we don't do it tonight, we have to do it tonight, don't we? Because we don't have another meeting for,
No, we can have a...
It's either tonight or we can have a special meeting.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, I have a question on that.
Mr. Clayman?
A question for Assembly Council. Could we move to postpone action on that question of an override until the first meeting in January? Would that be an appropriate motion to take so we don't have to actually vote tonight, but we can take it up at a later date?
It's potentially adding an item to the agenda, so I'm going to allow it. The question to legal is if we could postpone possible override of the veto until our first meeting in January.
Through the chair, I'd have to count the 21 days. The 21 days run from when the mayor vetoes.
Which apparently occurred today.
So I'll be glad to go offline and count them.
Thank you. We'd appreciate that.
I think we're...
All right, I'm going to go over the items that have been pulled in the meantime to make sure that we've all got the same thing. On the first page of the regular agenda, Bravo 1 has been pulled. And then, just a second, Mr. Birch. And then continuing on the regular agenda, on the E section, 9 Echo 3, Echo 6, Echo 7, Echo 8, and Echo 9. And then on the addendum, we have pulled 9 Echo 13. And then on, actually, Madam Clerk, shouldn't we pull the oh, never mind, okay. And then on the late on the table, we've pulled 9A1.
Yes, that sounds right.
And I believe I said F13. Did I miss that one? There's too many pages here.
F13.
Oh, on the late on the table?
F13
No, I
is
did.
on the addendum.
You mean E13? It was E13. Yeah, it was here. All right. Mr. Clayman,
Madam Chair,
did you want to say something? You were in the screen.
I think I did that on another matter. I think it's now
All right.
okay.
Sorry. Do you want to pull F13?
Yeah, I did. I asked it for it to be taken.
All right. I'm going to clarify, Ms. Drummond, did you want both E13 on the addendum and F13?
No, I didn't ask for E13. I asked for F. as
Oh,
in Frank.
pardon me.
That's quite all right.
Pardon me. All right.
Unless 13 needs to be pulled for, E13 needs to be pulled for the administration, I didn't ask to pull that one.
No, it does not, as I understand it. All right. I misspoke, everybody. It was F13 that was pulled. All right. With that, Oh, Ms. Tucker.
Yes, through the chair, in answer to Mr. Clayman's question, the 21st day is Tuesday, January 5th.
But my question, Ms. Tucker, is this, that's the 21st day, but could we, by separate action, move to extend the time with it, which we can consider a veto override, so we could take it up at the meeting, I guess it's January 12th?
Through the chair, the answer to that question is no.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. The consent agenda is before us. Is there objection to approval of the consent agenda, lest the items pulled? Seeing no objection, then, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. All right. The first item before us is A1. Mr. Burt? Is there objection to approval?
Who let Bart retire? What's going on here?
Yeah. What the heck?
The chair is going to rule that objection as non-germane. Mr. Malden, would you come down the front, please? This is a resolution of the Assembly recognizing and honoring Bart Malden. Whereas for over 29 years, Bart Malden has proven himself to be an irreplaceable asset to the municipality of Anchorage by serving as junior administrative officer, buyer, deputy purchasing officer, director of purchasing at ATU, and municipal purchasing officer, and in the key role as municipal historian. And whereas Bart Malden attended an enormous amount of Assembly meetings, an average of 25 a year, explaining purchasing process and specific bids, contracts, and purchases to Assembly members and the public. Whereas Bart initiated the procurement card program in 2001, resulting in a reduction of purchase orders issued by the purchasing department and payment vouchers issued by the accounts payable division, all leading to a reduction of 4 staff positions. Whereas this program also improves on-time purchasing of small purchases and a rebate program, resulting in an average of more than $200,000 per year of revenue. And whereas Bart instituted an eBid web-based advertising system for competitive purchases, expanding our vendor base for acquisitions to a national, even a worldwide base. And whereas this system has already reduced reproduction and mailing costs, will reduce advertising costs in the near future, and will enhance competition in the overall acquisition process, resulting in additional savings. Whereas Bart was instrumental in rewriting Anchorage Municipal Code Title VII, streamlining contract award process by raising the thresholds on Assembly memorandum to be submitted for approval and reducing the number of AMs submitted by purchasing by over 40%, and apprising the Assembly of other acquisitions through monthly reports. Whereas the citizens of Anchorage will probably never know how instrumental Bart Malden has been in ensuring that municipal government operates efficiently, effectively, and in the best interests of the community. Whereas the municipal administration, the Anchorage Assembly, and the people of Anchorage will sorely miss Bart's professionalism, his attention to detail, his patience, his honesty, his historical perspective, his courtesy, and his incredible competence. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizes and honors Bart Malden. Passed and approved this day.
All right. Thank you. Good job. Congratulations.
Say a few words, sir. I guess the best thing that I can say right now is I'm glad you didn't have a packed house tonight. I thought I had timed this such that I wouldn't have to be up here and that you would be almost impossible to get a resolution on the table. Obviously, that didn't work either. So with that, I didn't prepare any speech, but I will tell you a couple small secrets that is probably not known. I never really came to the city looking for a career. I had originally had a career with, I initiated with the federal government. After about 8 years, they said, if you want to move up, you got to move out. And I said, well, I'm not quite ready to leave town yet. So I decided to move over to the city to kind of expand my horizons a little bit and to get some new experience. And I thought that I would come to work for 5 or 8 years and then shuffle back over to my federal job and complete out my federal retirement. Well, the federal government, about 3 or 4 years into my plan, changed my plan. They instituted a warrant system, which I didn't qualify for anymore, and they also reduced their retirement system, and because I had left service, I wasn't grandfathered. So I thought, well, best deal now is to stay where I'm at and to make the best of it. And so that's what started my career, and fortunately there was a lot of good people there, a lot of people that tolerated some of my mistakes, because I made plenty when I was young. And, you know, it's been a good career for me, and I appreciate it. But it just goes to show that sometimes you never really know where you're going to land and where you're going to end up. So everything that's here tonight, and I thank you for it, I can tell you that it's not just me. It deals with the staff, and I have most of those people here tonight. I think that's about all I have to say.
Well, there's a number of people who have things they want to say to you, so hold on. Mr. Mayor, would you like to start off here?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I had the pleasure for 9 years on the Assembly and now for 6 months as mayor to work with Bart. And he was actually going to leave earlier, and he was gracious enough to give me a few months of his time so that I could say that you know, he worked for my administration too. And I told him right from the start when we came in, as you know, we implemented a hiring freeze, and in his case there was a retiring freeze, but he totally ignored that memo. And he runs his own shop down there, doesn't look at my memos, and so it's a. But no, Bart, really, I think when over all those years that I've sat at these days and watched people say goodbye to the city, this one really hurts a bit, because you really are a true public servant and do a great job, and you've got a great staff, and so I know you've prepared us for you leaving, but it doesn't make it any easier. I just wish you great success in your new venture. I know you've got something new planned, and best of luck to you, Bart.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Bart. Gosh, this today feels exactly the way it felt when you left general government to go and work for ATU, and I was a municipal employee, and we've known each other and worked together for 25 years. And you're an exemplary employee, and I've always admired your integrity and your ethics and your determination to do the right thing regardless. Nobody, absolutely nobody, has ever been able to change your mind on anything, period. And they've tried. But I wish you well, Bart, and you're going to be missed, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnston.
Well, the municipality has a lot of great employees, but when you first get on the Assembly, it's like a maze working your way through employees and trying to understand what they're saying to you and how to process it. And I have to say that you were one of the first people that I felt that I had a very comfortable relationship with, because I always felt you gave me the straight scoop. And that is, and most everybody does, but you had a nice way of doing it. I never had to worry that I had to interpret something other than what you were saying. I also like the fact that as you and I have gone down a lot of roads of looking at alternatives, and you've spent the time with me, humoring me as we looked at alternatives, but you're always very open and always open to change, and I really appreciate that. I have a question for you. What do you think your greatest legacy is?
You know, I think, I don't know if it's a legacy, you know, or if it will haunt me at some point, but I have to kind of echo what Ms. Gray said, that, you know, I've been fortunate to be able to be in a job that I got to work up into and to eventually be the director. And I think that we always maintained the integrity of our office and that we were serving the public and the contractors, and it always wasn't about us. And there were times that I ruled against the administration. And I think that that's a trade-off. It absolutely has to be there, and it protects the public, it protects our funds, it protects the contractors, and it keeps everything alive inside our system. So I'm happy for that.
Thank you. I'm very happy to have gotten to know you. Thank you.
Ms. Selkirk.
Well, I can hardly say another word after what you just said, and it is your profound trust and integrity, I think, that has impressed me from, I think, the day I met you. There are cornerstones in our employees. There are people who set standards that are examples for the people around them, and you are certainly that kind of a person. And I know, just in interacting with you over the years, that you are absolutely trustworthy. And to have an employee in such a responsible and important position having to do with evaluating contracts where there's all sorts of opportunities to create a sense of mistrust, to have an employee that is reliable and always protects the public trust is a real gift to this community. And I wish you an absolutely wonderful retirement. You've earned it, and I know you'll be up to some wonderful things, but it's going to take a long time to replace you in that position. You know, someone will, in about 20 years, come along with the kind of experience you have under your belt. But we'll miss you greatly, but I wish you well.
Okay. Thank you. I suspect there may be a few department directors that will be cheering or doing a little tap dance here.
Mr. Klayman.
Thank you, Mr. Malden. I think one of the things that I really am constantly reminded in the work that you do is three of the real great qualities of a great public servant is the quality of tolerance, because you must hear so many diverse opinions that really aren't exactly on point and don't exactly help you get through the day and do the work that needs to be done. Patience to get through the questions that you know the answer to, but you need to explain again to one person and again to another person and again to a third person, because that's what's needed to do the job right. And I think the third quality that has really served you so well, and I know will continue to serve you well in your next work career that you're going on to when you leave here, is focus. And that's that focus to know that you were there to really, in purchasing things for the city, to get the best deal possible under all the circumstances and to treat everyone fairly. And those are three qualities that have served you well here, will serve you well in the future, and on our example that I think all of us can learn from. So thank you very much for your service to this community.
Thank you, Mr. Klayman.
Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very much along the same points the last two speakers made. You know, as staff, before being an assembly member, you often get very pointed questions from assembly members, and assembly members don't always like the answers that they get from staff. But I saw as a staff member and as an assembly member, when Bart Malden says it's so, you may not like it, but you know that it's so. And I always appreciated the depth of your knowledge, and I know that's in part born over time, and that's what's going to make you irreplaceable. You've done such a good job for so long, but you have earned your retirement. But I think, as Dr. Selkirk pointed out, you're somebody who other people look to as an example, and I'm certain that you've instilled that same ethic in the rest of your department. So I feel comfortable that we're left on good footing, and I hope you enjoy every minute of your retirement and whatever comes next. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I think the remarks that we've all heard spoken here are shared by employees throughout the city. I know I want to, again, personally say I'm going to miss you. I see your mother is here, and I want to say, Cheryl, that you got a good reason to be proud. Thank you, Bart.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, with the consent agenda, we approved many boards and commissions.
I was about to do that.
Thank you, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
If you were just appointed to a board or a commission, we'd very much like to meet you. If you wouldn't mind coming down to the microphone and introducing yourself, we'd appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, I'm Marianne Molitor. Live in Turnagain, been a resident here since 1963 in Anchorage. I've been appointed to the Alaska Center for the Performing Arts Board.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Bishop Davis, and I've been appointed to the Anchorage Community University Commission, and I'm happy to serve and do what I can as I work continually in the community. Thank you so much.
Very good. Glad you're with us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don Winchester. I've been appointed to Public Facilities and happy to serve.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Assembly, Steve Nerland, appointed to the Public Facilities Commission and glad to serve.
Well, thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Andy Clary, appointed to Health and Human Services. Happy to serve.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Assembly, Jeremiah Stephen, appointed to Housing and, I keep thinking of Housing and Urban Development. I just told Andy, so it's Housing and Neighborhood Development.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Jean Abel, and I've been appointed to the Election Commission Board and happy to serve.
Very good. Thank you. Important job.
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Adam Galindo, and I was appointed to the Anchorage Community Diversity Board, and I'm happy to serve.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Assembly members, my name is Bill Knoll. I've been appointed to the Port Commission.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Assembly, I'm Bill Bullock, appointed to the Solid Waste and Recycling Advisory Commission. Thanks
Very
for the
good.
opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, so much. We depend on you very, very much for your work. Appreciate it. All right. B1. Ms. Drummond?
Just one moment, Madam Chair. I got to get my ordinance in front of me.
I think you wanted to move to postpone indefinitely?
Yes. Thank you. Move to postpone AR 2009-291, postpone indefinitely.
Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that matter is postponed indefinitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. On to the E section of our agenda.
Wow, we just got a lot done.
We got a lot done quickly there, yes. Mr. Starr, E3, Echo 3?
Yeah, I'll move to accept.
Go ahead, Mr. Starr.
I was hoping to just get some clarification on E3, which is finding that revenues are going to be short based on a $2 million grant allocation that was apparently logged in the books. But my question is perhaps to Lucinda Mahoney there on will that burden our fund balances coming into first quarter adjustments, or how have we reacted?
Well, through the chair, we have considered the loss of that revenue in our new forecast of the 2009 fund balance. And so that will be $2 million less in area-wide 101, which does negatively impact fund balance, of course. Based on our preliminary calculation, we still are able to meet the 8.25% bond designation requirement. And also considering other adjustments that we've become aware of, we will still be able to be at 1.75% for the emergency operating designation. That's our latest forecast.
Just one more through the chair. We're appropriately accounting for it in 2010 in a grant. How is it?
Yeah.
Through the chair, Mr. Starr, yes, we will if we get it as a grant. The problem is that during first quarter last April, the decision was made to include $2 million in the operating budget as expected revenue, even though it should have been more appropriately budgeted as a grant if we received it. And so if in 2010 we receive we have projects that are eligible for this grant program, it would then come to the Assembly, you would approve it as a grant, and it's outside of the operating budget.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Is there any other discussion on this report? Is there any objection to accepting the report? Hearing and seeing none, the report is accepted unanimously. Ms. Drummond, we're now at Echo 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see, Echo 6, move to postpone indefinitely Information Memorandum 131-2009, noting that we have replaced it with 9E7A that we accepted on the consent agenda. Tell me if I have this.
I think that's correct. We need a second,
wait a
though.
minute. No, wait, is that the right one? No, that's special compensation,
No.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
6A.
6A, where is the
They're
document?
both 6. One is a A version. We approved the A version on the consent agenda, but she's pulled this one because the A version is the correct version.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was moved and approved on the addendum, item
Yes.
E6A.
Yes.
That's correct.
Are there questions on that? Is there discussion on that? There may have been another way to handle this, folks. Basically, I'm seeing the confused frowns. Basically, the addendum version is the correct one, the consent agenda version is the wrong one. So we decided, basically, we'll just pull them off the regular, and since nobody pulled them, I'm assuming you were fine with the A versions. All right. Is there objection to postponing 6? Yeah, just E6 indefinitely then. Seeing no objection, that one is postponed indefinitely.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Ms. Drummond.
Move to postpone indefinitely item E7, Information Memorandum 132-2009, for the same reason as just given for the previous item. It has been replaced by 9E8A as accepted on the consent agenda.
7A.
Okay, sorry, I'm in two different places. Okay, E7A, correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there discussion? Is there objection? Can you hit the screen, Harriet? All right, seeing no objection, that is unanimously postponed indefinitely. Okay. All right. Ms. Drummond, can you do one more?
Okay, let's see, Mr. Starr pulled 9, okay, 8.
Yes.
Item 8, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Move to postpone indefinitely item 9E8, Information Memorandum 133-2009, as it has been replaced with the item that we approved on the consent agenda, 9E8A.
Is there discussion? Harriet, push the screen. Mr. Birch?
Yeah, could you just clarify what, what's having, with these being late or coming in tonight, what's the significant difference here between the two?
The administration.
Just the reinforcement on the CPI component?
Ms. Jussera, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, these were corrections to titles, and it also added the language required for the certification that there were no financial consequences, among other things.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Is there objection to the postponement? Seeing none, that matter is postponed indefinitely. All right. We are now at Echo 9. Mr. Starr?
I move to postpone indefinitely.
Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that matter is postponed indefinitely. And noting again that there is the same item with a different number on the addendum that replaces it. It's the Echo 13 item.
138-2009.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, the next item for us is for introduction 9F13. Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see. Move to introduce item 9F13, ordinance AO 2009-143.
Second.
Third.
That's introduced.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to refer this item to the Public Safety Committee of the Assembly. I believe this item is going to require considerable input from the public as well as my colleagues on the Assembly and as well as the administration. I'd like to work with the administration on this item to see how we can help cut down or hopefully eliminate the kinds of tragedies we've witnessed in this community over the many, many years of DUI, convicted DUI, people driving under the influence and killing people or injuring them, and as well as damaging property. I would appreciate approval and acceptance by the Public Safety Committee.
Basically, Mr. Drummond, we've already talked about doing that very thing, and Mr. Gutierrez has announced that he's going to have a special public hearing of a date yet to be determined so that folks can weigh in on it. Yeah, I think we all know that this needs some wide discussion, and it sounds as if our Public Safety Committee is well on the way of doing that. So thank you, Mr. Gutierrez and Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we are finished with the consent agenda, and we can go, is it too early for appearance requests? Yes, it is. Into the 11s. Yes, indeed. All right. The first item before us, I've got it. 11A. We don't have any. There's no motion on the floor that I can, oh, wait a minute, there is a motion to approve on the floor. It was moved by Dr. Selkirk and seconded by Ms. Drummond. Is there discussion on 11A? Is there objection to 11A? Hearing and seeing none, that matter is approved unanimously. 11B, there's also a motion to approve on the floor. So that item is now before us. Is there discussion? Is there objection?
Madam Chair, just like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Drummond.
I want to thank the IT folks for holding a very informative work session with the Assembly last Friday on this issue and the one that precedes it. I think I, in particular, learned an awful lot about what we're doing here, and in fact, I met some contractors on server farms and had a very interesting tour yesterday, and I'd like to talk to the administration about what I learned and how we can save the community money and work with the private sector in, I can't even use the right language, because what I saw at the AT&T buildings on Government Hill is just very impressive. The server farm that's there, tight security, incredibly redundant power supplies. This is where our servers need to be maintained, and I would urge that the administration take a look at this at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Is there objection? Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm seeing you. Thank you. Is there any objection to approval? Hearing and seeing no objection, that matter is approved. I guess I shouldn't say unanimously, should I? 10 to 0.
Well, Mr. Coffey's excused.
He is excused. Mr. Coffey's excused. That's why I said that. All right. The next item before us is 11D. And
C.
I'm sorry. Good thing everybody's paying attention here. 11C, I apologize. 11C, there is a motion to approve on the floor. This is regarding the AWU Water Capital Improvement Projects. Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that matter is approved 10 to 0. Now, D. This, I don't have any notes that there was a motion on this one, so I'm going to need a motion. The public hearing was closed, but I
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing none, that matter is approved unanimously. Now, Mr. Flynn, do you want to make the motion for 11E?
As soon as I can, Madam Chair. There we are. Madam Chair, I would move to postpone this item to our meeting on January 12, as we discussed previously.
Second.
All right. Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that is approved. All right. Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, noting that we have to wait a few minutes before we can continue with our agenda, I'd just like to make a brief announcement.
Go ahead.
For those of you who are here to discuss item 13B, the safety hour ordinance, based on the recommendations of the Public Safety Advisory Commission, it's my intent to postpone this item indefinitely after the public hearing. That means you're certainly welcome to testify, and we'll listen to what you have to say. But after we're done, my expectation is we'll be tabling it, not taking it up. Won't be taking any action on it whatsoever. If there are any questions, you're welcome to grab me at the break. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a set of rules that basically prohibit us from taking further action until 6. So we've got a 5-minute recess at this time.
All right.
We're now at the time on our agenda where we have appearance requests. I wonder if Reverend Hitchcock and Barbara Clark are here. They are. I see fingers pointing, but. And some faces have shifted a little bit from what I expected. But.
My name is Ron Devon. I'll be replacing Barb Clark.
Okay.
And this is Beatrice Hitchcock, the minister of the Anchorage Unitarian Universalist Fellowship.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Okay. Assembly members, Mayor, thank you very much for allowing me to address you today. My name is Ron Devon. I'm the president of the Anchorage Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm here today to celebrate an annual tradition of more than 50 years. Since that time, we as a religious community, exempt from payment of property taxes, have made a payment to the city, which we call Pilot. Pilot stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. Like everyone these days, we struggle to make ends meet. Times are hard, and it takes many people and a good deal of effort to hold a successful pledge drive each year. Other than the salary of our minister and staff, this payment to the municipality is our largest budget item. It would be easy for us to cut this payment, but we don't, and I'd like to explain why. We believe strongly in the separation of church and state. While we are all proud and loyal members of our religious community, we recognize that our neighbors may not share our beliefs. Should they be required to subsidize our church? Why should the tax dollars of average Anchorage residents support a religious institution of which they are not a part? As members of the community, we enjoy certain benefits. If our building catches fire, we expect that the fire department will come to our aid. If we need the police or emergency services, which happened twice this year, we want to feel confident that they will be there. We use the street lights to find our way. We are enjoying a newly paved road which accesses our facility. We are not interested in a handout from our neighbors. We understand we need to pay our fair share, and so we do. We do our part. We pitch in. We support our community, and it feels good. In this spirit of good citizenship and taking personal fiscal responsibility seriously, we would like to encourage other churches in Anchorage to do the same. We believe that rather than trying to increase the tax benefits they receive by increasing the number of tax exemption properties they claim, communities of faith can find that giving back to the community they benefit from is infinitely more rewarding. This season of giving should serve to remind us all that this is true. Our community is small, but we affirm our principles, which tell us that this issue is important enough to have continued for half a century. We understand that cutting our support or any support for vital city services such as police, fire protection, street maintenance, and the library is not the answer. It is not the way that good community leaders with the best interests of the city at heart should behave. We are proud to fund our values and support this wonderful community that we all love. And I have a check here for $4,200 to present to the municipality of Anchorage.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, will you? I want to thank you very much for coming. We certainly recognize and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
I just had a question. Is that in our revenue projections for this year?
Mr. Kleiman?
Mr. Devon, I just want to thank you all for coming down for your annual journey. As a member of the Anchorage Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, I'm pleased that a portion of my pledge goes to pay for the city services that religious institution receives, and I share your belief that it would be nice if other religious institutions in our community made similar contributions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. And on behalf of this municipality, again, thank you very much. You know, for 9 years on the Assembly and now again as Mayor, I've indeed witnessed and appreciated this tradition, and it is indeed a very giving tradition. I salute you for doing that. You know, we oftentimes hear from people who say, you know, in order to maintain certain things that they like in the community, they'd be willing to pay more. Well, you guys really do it, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Devon. I really appreciate what you and your fellow members of the Unitarian Fellowship have done and continue to do and have done in the past. I really do. Thank you very much. And I'm wondering how the road project is in front of your facility.
They finally got it finished up before it started snowing.
Great.
So
Glad to hear it. Thanks very much.
Dr. Selkirk?
I'm quietly negotiating with the mayor to see if he'll put it in the library budget. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Is Mr. Wilkerson here? Please come forward. Ms. Wilkerson, I apologize for the confusion last time. I had thought that you had been notified. So I'm glad you could make this one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the Assembly.
Sir, before you start, if you could turn the mic towards your mouth, we can pick you up better.
Okay. Is this better?
Excellent.
Okay. Hello, my name is Tony Wilkerson, and I'm the Alaska State Coordinator for the Workplace Bullying Institute. And I'm addressing the Anchorage Assembly on amending the Anchorage Code chapter to make Anchorage safe for all to work. Recently, the Anchorage Assembly members set forth a resolution leading to an ordinance to address discrimination that is currently not enforced by federal laws. Anchorage Ordinance 64 was intended to amend the Anchorage Code chapter 5.10, Equal Rights Commission, and 5.20, Unlawful Discrimination Practices and Potential Conflicts with Individuals' Constitutional Rights. This ordinance, if passed, would not have been enough, for it would not have addressed some of the ways in which discrimination and harassment is delivered. Discrimination and harassment practices are sometimes learned behaviors that can be seated and rooted in our school years, and thus Mayor Sullivan, in an effort to address bullying in Anchorage schools, declared November Say No to Bullying Month. Addressing bullying in our schools is an important step to addressing an issue that has corrupted our society. This issue, unfortunately, has migrated into our workplace. Bullying on the job comes in numerous forms. Some are blatant for all to see and even participate in. Other forms are more discreet, thus making the work environment counterproductive for all that are involved, and even at times creating a hostile work environment. I wouldn't have believed that this form of harassment exists until it started happening to me. A few years ago, I started being harassed on the job. At first, the harassment was more of an annoyance than harassment, but as the consistency and the frequency of the harassment continued, it became evident that I was a victim of a new type of harassment that has corrupted the American workforce. My story is just one of millions of Americans that have had to endure these illegal tactics that some employers allow against employees that speak out about these abusive practices. But I must point out my story pales in comparison to what others have had to endure. A prime example of this is a tragic shooting that took place down in Soldotna Hospital about a year ago that many believe was the result of workplace bullying. Workplace bullying is the phenomenon to describe the deliberate workplace campaign of interpersonal career, health, and family destruction directed by one or more perpetrators without provocation or reason at one or more undeserving, involuntary targeted individuals. To be more precise, workplace bullying is the repeated health, harm, or mistreatment that is manifested in one or more of the following forms: verbal abuse, conduct that is threatening, intimidating, or humiliating, or workplace sabotaging, undermining work productivity. And recently, Zogby International conducted one of the largest scientific surveys on bullying in the United States. Given the time constraints of this presentation, I can't really go into the statistics, but I do have them readily available for you. And I would ask the Anchorage Assembly amend the Anchorage Code to address this form of harassment and make our workplace safe for all to achieve the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes.
All right, you do have questions. Dr. Selkirk?
I'm wondering if you might make your testimony available to the clerk and she could make copies for us and we could then see the extra things that you wanted to share with us, or any statistics that you have.
Okay. Actually, I do have copies of it for the...
That would be great.
Okay.
And I'm happy to look at that and then follow up and talk with you about that. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now at 13A on our agenda. This, I believe, there's been no action one way or the other on. Since we covered the original ordinance in our budget, the administration is still requesting instead that we deal with 129S, the S version, which does not increase fares, but does amend the, I don't know if it's correct to say the 2-for-1 provision. And so at this time, Madam Clerk, has there been a public hearing on this? I'm sorry. There has not been a public hearing on this one? I can't tell. All right. So if you'd like to talk to us about a change in the practice of bus fares, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. It's, I believe, Dr. Selkirk?
I just want to clarify, we've already acted on this issue in terms of our work in the budget.
We have on the 129, not the 129S.
So wouldn't it be okay?
I'm assuming that someone would move the 129S just to talk about it, because that's the only thing that's really relevant at this point.
Both of these address increasing fares, right?
No, ma'am. The 129S does not increase fares. Maybe it would be helpful to the public and to the
Jody can come up and explain
to walk us through them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we can decide if we want to make a motion.
Thank you. Through the chair, this S version of our proposed fare increase eliminates all proposed fare increases that would affect the bus rider themselves. However, we would still propose eliminating our 2-for-1 program, and that's a small item at the bottom of that code. This is a program that allows nonprofits and social service agencies to buy bus passes for their clients on a 2-for-1 basis up to $1,000.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Jody, and I apologize. I should have asked for this earlier, but are we talking about essentially 125 agencies that use this to the hilt? Are we talking about 250 agencies that use parts of their authority? About how many agencies are we affecting here?
There are 4 agencies that are kind of the heavy hitters, and they have a lot of, like, for example, the state of Alaska. They have a lot of different agencies within the state of Alaska. That's one big user of this program. Another big user is a school district, and then there are miscellaneous other ones. But those, and Cook Inlet Tribal Council, those tend to be the 3 biggest users of this program.
Could I request that we get a motion on the floor one way or the other before since we don't have anything really to talk about without a motion?
I move to approve.
The S version?
S version, yes.
All right, thank you. Now we have something to talk about. Mr. Flynn, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you want to continue?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Klayman?
Question for Ms. Carr. You were explaining 2 or 3 of the users. One would be the state of Alaska. And I was unclear whether this means state employees who use the bus are using the 2-for-1 so that 2 state employees can get the package, or is this used more for people who come to the state for social services, and so people who are coming to the state in need the state is making available for them the 2-for-1, but state employees are not eligible?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's mostly the clients of these agencies.
Okay.
And the state is actually paying the check for that. The client's not paying the check. The agencies are.
So what happens is, if I'm hearing correctly, the state would pay for 2 passes for the price of 1 so that 2 people could ride the bus for less. And am I putting words in the municipality's mouth to suggest that we're essentially subsidizing something the state is providing? Is that kind of the thought? I see the mayor nodding.
We think that they can probably accommodate the full cost of this without the 2-for-1, without a whole lot of stress to their system.
And one of the 4 primary beneficiaries of this is Cook Inlet Tribal Council?
That's one of them.
Madam Chair, I think I need to declare a possible conflict. My wife is vice president at Cook Inlet Tribal Council and very involved in all their activities. So I probably should declare that possible conflict before going any further on this matter.
Well, my sheet here. So basically, your family has a financial interest?
Well, I don't think we have a personal financial interest. She's a salary employee with Cook Inlet Tribal Council, and the clients that they serve benefit from this very program.
Okay. Do you have a private interest in the matter that would make it difficult for you to act in the public interest?
I don't have a private interest, no.
Do you believe that if you participated in the matter, it would cause a loss of public trust in this body?
Well, Madam Chair, my difficulty is that my sense is that this is something that I have not had any discussions with my wife about this, but I suspect if they knew about this, they would be here with an opinion. And so I'm troubled knowing that there's a interest group that may have real concerns with this. I'm concerned with going forward without them having a chance to be heard about it. I just kind of know what I'm going to hear when I get home at this. If this goes forward when they don't get a chance to be heard.
It sounds as if you believe that you have a conflict.
I am troubled voting on this because there's a clear user group that I think would very much like.
All right, the chair's going to rule that you have a conflict then, does anybody have any objection to that ruling? All right. So Mr. Clement is directed to not participate in the discussion. Dr. Selcraig, you're next in queue.
I have a couple more questions for Jody, if you don't mind. It makes sense to me that we shouldn't be subsidizing the state, and I guess I'm wondering about the school district. How are these bus passes used? Have you any idea who the target is through the school district?
Through the chair, Ms. Selcraig, it's an Avail program. Central Middle School has a little bit. Child in Transition, Highland Tech has a little bit. Migrant Education.
So we don't know how it really is used internally. And then are there some nonprofits that also participate in that? And what percentage of this money goes to nonprofits?
I don't have that broken down, but there are a number of churches that use this program. They're really varied.
So we really don't have a sense of how the 2-for-1 passes are targeted. They're used in a variety of ways by different entities.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes, I might have a conflict.
Okay. State your conflict.
I actually do contract work with Cook Inlet Tribal Council.
Do you have, well, I'm going to do the form questions and then ask you a different question. Do you have a financial interest then? Apparently you do with Cook Inlet because
Right.
all right. I'm going to then rule that you do have a conflict.
I mean, well, I don't have a financial interest on this particular.
But you do with Cook
Right.
Inlet.
Right.
All right. Do you have a private interest that would make it difficult for you to act in the public interest?
Probably because I know the families that are being served by this, yes.
And I'm going to, if there's no objections from the body, rule that you not participate in this matter unless there's objection. Seeing no objection, goodbye, Ms. Johnston. All right. Ms. Drummond, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Kars, thank you very much for the explanation. I missed something about, I see there are school passes in the fare list that are not being affected, school class passes, summer passes, so on and so forth. I'm still not clear on who is being affected by the change in this 2-for-1 program in the school district. Is it the homeless program that aims to keep kids at the same school for the entire year so that their lives aren't disrupted and they can focus on school? Is that the program that we're talking about?
Through the chair, Ms. Drummond, that is one of the programs, but there are about 7 or 8 of them. And I guess what I'd like to say is keep in mind each program is only going to be subject by $1,000 because that's our maximum is $1,000 per agency. So a particular program may only be affected by $1,000.
Well, if they only have $2,000 to pay for it, this is a huge hit. If they have $70,000, that's a different story. Did I also hear you say that the state reimburses for these passes? What did I hear in that respect?
What the state would actually buy passes for their clients and then give them out to their clients. So instead of buying a monthly pass for one client for the same amount of money, they can buy a monthly pass for 2 clients.
And the clients are who?
Of either I think it depends on the program. If it's public assistance, it would be some of their clients in public assistance. If it's Office of Children's Services, perhaps it would be a youth. It all varies based on the program.
And what does it take for those clients to get the funding from the state? Do they have to each individually apply?
No. We usually get a voucher from the state asking for 10 monthly passes for the price of 5 monthly passes.
Okay. I am not interested in leaving school kids on the street, and I'm not hearing how this problem is going to be ameliorated by this program. Are we actually, is the state actually going to be paying the city this $240,000 increase in revenues?
Through the chair, it's $125,000, and that would be all of the agencies that currently buy a 2-for-1 or participate in the 2-for-1 program.
And if I could, Madam Chair, we sent letters out to all the agencies that participate in this program, and Cook Inlet Tribal Council, School District, none of them responded with concerns about this. If this does not pass, then you're asking Transit to find another $240,000 in cuts in their budget, and we will. I mean, we have to. So, I mean, this is part of the revenue that we anticipated when we passed the budget. We said that we would restore certain services, but this was one item that we said that we wouldn't amend because it is revenue positive to the transit, and we'll have to find cuts otherwise. We're just asking those agencies that participate to pay a little bit more, and so far they haven't indicated any problem with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand. I'm just trying to figure out where the money is going to come from to continue to provide these passes to this particular class of users. If this is the way that we get the state to participate in helping to fund public transit, which they're not currently doing, then I'm all for it. But I'm having a hard time understanding if this is what is actually transpiring if we vote yes on this item.
Basically what's transpiring is they're going to pay a little bit more for their bus passes, and the transit will have a little bit more revenue so they can maintain employees and services. I mean, we're just not subsidizing the cost of these agencies anymore.
Anything else right now, Ms. Drummond?
Not right now. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
A few quick things. First, I think the mayor accidentally misspoke. I think he was mentioned at 240,000. I think you meant 125. Okay, no problem. Secondly, Ms. Drummond, may I suggest, while it is presuming we enact this ordinance, useful to receive a few more bucks from the state for the services that they use, that the city provides, may I suggest you submit an amendment to our legislative program seeking state funding for public transit, and we'll happily take that up when we work on that in January.
Thank you.
I guess my final question, or my final comment question is I'm struggling because I'm reading the ordinance here. It's pretty simple. It says we're limiting the 2-for-1 program for IRS Section 501c3 charitable agencies. How in the world did governmental agencies start popping up as 501c3s?
Through the chair, I don't know the answer to that. I will find out. What we've tried to do in the past is be very supportive of social service of agencies and other governmental agencies.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it seems to me if we wanted to solve this problem, the easy way to do it would be just do what the ordinance says we're supposed to do and not things we're not. Finally, regarding the school district budgetary concern that Ms. Drummond sort of gave voice to, we did authorize them to increase their budget to the extent they're assuming responsibilities. We previously provided, I think this would fall under that, to the extent that we're asking more money from them for public transit, they could augment their budget slightly. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I think this is a really great program, and I'm really pleased that the municipality of Anchorage was able to provide this service to the state. But let me ask you a question that you may or may not be able to answer. So do you think that because the city can no longer afford to provide this service, that the state's going to stop giving out the other 50% of the passes?
Through the chair, I don't see this impacting the agencies at all, or it'll be minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Selkirk?
This is a little difficult because to me it's a no-brainer that we shouldn't be subsidizing the state. So I don't have any problem agreeing to that. And to some degree, I guess, I would really want to examine what we're doing with the school district. But the problem to me is that I don't think I understand exactly what the other impacts are of this. And, so it would be nice to know who this is going to be impacting, and if we have some agencies that are providing, some nonprofit agencies that are providing critical services, I hate to cut the money, but so I guess it's one of these things where we just, we have to just trust you, and we know how hard that is sometimes. I mean, with the history we've had in terms of kind of tension between the assembly and the trust issue that floats around from time to time. So I guess in the future, when you bring something, if you just had a list of who it was impacting, because I'm not really interested in cutting a program, for example, that allows a young girl at Clare House to get to her high school if she's homeless. And I know, in fact, there have been young girls at Clare House who have had to take buses to get to their high school. So I would hope that we hear from the school district on this, and if we have to come back and reconsider a piece, we could. Thank you.
Ms. Drummond.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would request the body to join me in asking to postpone this item either until the January 12th meeting or until a special meeting called just for this item in order to be able to discuss this item with the school district on Friday at our quarterly meeting. As a former school board member, I know how the district struggled to find the money to get those homeless kids going to the same school and focusing on education. This is all about making sure they get an education. Moving kids from school to school because they either have parents who don't care or parents who can't focus on getting them there is highly disruptive to the student who, through no fault of their own, is being moved around town and going to different schools. That is a sure sign it points to failure in many cases for these students. And I would much prefer to discuss this with the school board before we take action on it. I also need to know from the administration if we have to take action on this item before the 31st of December.
Do we have to?
Well, it's part of her budget. So, I mean, the budget starts January 1st. And, you know, when you pass a budget and you have revenues that we've agreed to in there, this just basically confirms that what we did in the budget process when we said we will keep this as a revenue source, but we're not going to increase fares elsewhere. So, I mean, this was discussed during the budget and agreed to that this would be part of the revenues for transit. So if by January 1st, her budget will not be whole starting the year.
Understood, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. But we could always call a special meeting after the joint school board assembly meeting on Friday for the purpose of this particular item. Madam Chair has assured me that that can be done. If that works for you, I sure would appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with the school
Sure,
district.
it can be done, but a special meeting for this one item, well, it's your choice.
Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. The motion.
Move to postpone this item until a special meeting to be held for the purpose of considering just this one item. After Friday, December 18th.
I won't be there.
I'll second that, Madam Chair, just for purposes of discussion.
Thank you. To the clerk, I'll kind of discuss this over the mic because I think we'll probably all be interested in it. This meeting is at the school district headquarters.
Yes.
So if we declared a special meeting, is there any limitation on us for holding it at the school district building?
I don't believe so. If we notice it right now for a certain time and a certain place, that's the public notice.
All right, so
I'll check with council, though, if they have a differing opinion.
Is there any problem to council with potentially a special meeting after the work session, which will be held at the school district building on Friday, the 18th?
Through the chair, no.
All right, thank you. All right, now there's 3 people in queue, and I'm going to assume you're going to talk about the motion before us, the amendment. Dr. Selkrig, you're first.
I have a question for the administration. Were the recipients of this this program notified in advance, and did they know we were going to be reviewing it tonight tonight and voting on it tonight? In other words, did you let them know that they'd have a chance to testify in this if they wanted to?
Through the chair, we sent notices out to them about 6 weeks to two months ago about the original public hearing.
Okay, and we did have a fair amount of testimony, but I wonder I'm just wondering if they were notified. It would be helpful that if we are going to have another meeting specifically on this, if at least the people who are recipients could be notified. Because it's a little unclear to me exactly who all the recipients are.
Mr. Birch.
I'd speak against postponement. I think, it's clear that this ordinance basically reflects the fare reductions that were agreed to in the budget compromise. It incorporates the revenue that's necessary to balance the budget. I think that, delaying this is not reasonable. And would speak against postponement.
Mr. Gutierrez.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Madam Chair. Please take me out of the queue.
All right. Ms. Drummond.
Madam Chair, if we could just postpone action until later this meeting and give me the opportunity during the break to make a couple of phone calls.
At this time, we have before us a motion to postpone to a time certain. The maker of that motion has asked instead to postpone this to later in the agenda. Is there objection from the body to allow this second motion and not continue the discussion on the original motion? I'm seeing no objection. Then the motion is to continue this. Do you have a time certain on the agenda, or do you just want us to put it at the end?
Yeah, let's take it up at the end. That would work.
All right. The motion is to take this item up at the end of the agenda. Is there a second to that? Thank you. Is there objection to that? Hearing and seeing none, we've moved this to the end of the agenda. Thank you. All right. The next item before us is 13B. This is an ordinance on an extended closing safety hour program. The sponsor has already indicated publicly that he intends to postpone indefinitely. But if you'd like to speak to this matter, please come forward. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mark Butler. I'm a member of the Anchorage Public Safety Advisory Commission. And Tony Piper, the chair of the commission, couldn't attend and asked me just to make a brief statement. On December 9th, the commission had a public forum where we asked members of the public and different organizations to comment on the ordinance as written. CHAR made a presentation about the ordinance. Standing Together Against Rape testified as an organization, a number of individuals as well, some who were owners of establishments and some who were not. At the end, the 9-member commission voted unanimously to vote to recommend to the Assembly and to Mayor that they not pass this as written. We were concerned about late-night bar issues and public safety, but we did not feel that this would add to the public safety at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Thanks for coming down. Would you, and I hesitate to ask you to speak for everybody on the commission, so maybe just for yourself, is there anything that could be done to this particular proposal that would make it palatable? If you were able to propose an amendment, what would you do? Or would you just basically prefer to see it go away?
I don't know how to say it to the chair and to Mr. Gutierrez, I guess it is. No, we would like to continue work on this theme. We think it's very important. STAR actually gave testimony against it as written, but indicated that they were interested in working with it together. We think Mr. Flynn's action and the Assembly Safety Committee is very good, very appropriate. One rape obviously is too much, one DWI and so forth is too much. So we'd like to work on it. We don't have any particular amendments at this time to make, but it was, I think, for myself and probably most of the members that testified and members of the public that were against it, it was the continued drinking later into the evening and where it got potential DWI, intoxicated drivers coming in opposite of incoming people going to work. We wanted, the police indicated very clearly from all the ranks, from all the way up to deputy chief, that they wanted to separate as much as possible for the public safety, those two flows of traffic.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this matter? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move to postpone this matter indefinitely.
I second it.
Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, this matter is postponed indefinitely. I think we could maybe deal with the next one fairly quickly. There's been, I think, Ms. Jackson, you intend to continue this one, don't you?
Madam Chair, yes. After we open the public hearing, I do plan to continue the public hearing until the meeting of January 12th. And would you like me to state the reason at this moment, Madam
Well,
Chair?
I think it's helpful if people know before they come forward to testify.
Okay. The reason why I'm going to move to continue the public hearing until the meeting of January 12th is because there is still some work that is being done on this ordinance, and there's going to be an S version, and it wasn't completed in time, but it will be available before the meeting on the 12th for review before the public hearing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. If anybody would like to come forward and speak to us on this, on AO 133, an ordinance codifying state law exemptions. This is regarding property tax. Please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, I'm going to then rule to continue this public hearing until January 12th. Correct, Ms. Gray Jackson? All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there objection to that? Seeing none. That is continued till January 12th. At this time, the Assembly is going to take its break. We'll be about 20 minutes. We're in recess. This is a resolution approving the Girdwood Water Improvements Phase 2B transmission main. And then the administration, before I open the public hearing, the administration has asked that this item be continued. So you're free to testify now, but there will probably not be a vote tonight. So if anybody would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, I'm going to move to continue this until our next meeting, which would be January 12th. Mr. Vacalis, I'm looking at you. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam.
All right. Is there objection? Oh, I need a motion. Could you hit, thank you. Is there any objection to continuing this matter to our next meeting? Hearing and seeing none, that continuation is approved, 10-0. Was that 10? Yeah. All right, the next item before us is 14B. This is a resolution approving an alcoholic beverages conditional use in the B3 district for a package store and license for Walmart Superstore number 2188 in Eagle River. If anybody would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Mr. Starr? Is there a discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that matter.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gutierrez.
Sorry, I'm fumbling with the buttons. I don't have any action to propose on this, but I do want to remind the body that this is a similar action to one we took several weeks ago with regard to Brown Jug in Muldoon, and we added a condition to that conditional use. But I will leave it to the body to determine whether it's appropriate to do to this one as well. But given that we have an ordinance that will be pending soon, I don't know if we need to do it tonight or not to this one, but I will leave that to the body. It should at least be discussed.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing no further discussion, is there objection? Hearing and seeing no objection, that matter is approved, 10-0. The next item before us is 14C. This is AO 128. This is an ordinance amending a zoning map and providing for the rezone of approximately 12 acres of I-1 to B3 for a Doubletree Center subdivision, Tract A, Block 1, Frag Lots 1 through 5. If anybody would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward.
Madam Chair, members of the Assembly, my name is Tim Potter with LHCAM, representing the owners of the property for the rezone. As you indicated, it is a rezone from I-1 to B3. I should note that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved this unanimously and determined that it was in conformance with both the current comp plan and the 2020 plan. The property has gone through a commercial tract fragment lot subdivision, a detailed plan. The improvements have been put in from a land development standpoint, and the uses will be forthcoming. So in its state as a commercial tract fragment lot subdivision, it really is a commercial development under the ability to do that within the I-1 zoning district. However, we believe that the B3 zoning district is a much better and more compatible zoning district than I-1 at that very important corner in the city. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
There appear to be no questions. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this matter? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there discussion? Could I pass this to you very briefly?
Ms. Osiander.
My concern was in relation to the industrial needs assessment study that we did very recently with the Economic Development Commission. I'm going to support it, Mr. Potter. You don't have to scurry down. But I'd be more than happy to talk about that issue. Well, I note that its particular location isn't really that great for continued industrial, particularly heavy industrial. Plus, there's a tenant in there that we really want to try to help, a potential tenant. So I read the whole packet, and I went back twice to read the discussion of the I-study. But I note that P&Z discussed that too. So I'm going to support it, but I think it's not necessarily going to be a norm where I'm going to be voting to move our existing industrial land into B3. So thank you.
We ready to vote?
You want to call on Sheila?
Okay. Oh, Dr. Selkirk.
Well, I have the same concerns, and maybe I do need to hear from Mr. Potter, because actually this site has a fair amount of industrial uses around it. It's not dominated by kind of beautiful commercial. And my sense is there's going to be apparently there's going to be a hotel here. And, I know it's great to have hotels near the airport, but we have a lot of area to the west that might be more appropriate. Mr. Potter, want to convince me that this is a wise thing to do?
Well, it's interesting that when you go out and you actually look at how the property around this area has been developed, it really has not been developed as industrial use. And with the way that the 2020 plan and the proposed land use plan has proposed this property as commercial, that kind of directs where it's going as well. It really is a major intersection that is very auto-oriented, with the restaurants nearby, the hotels across the street, and the business development to the north, which is really one of our oldest commercial business parks in town, and probably one of the most stable and best run and maintained one in the city. It doesn't seem appropriate to develop that corner as industrial. And in the heart of a high-intensity district where we hope that we will have high numbers of employment, which industrial typically doesn't support, along with mixed use and residential in the AC corridor, so that we can maybe get some transit working. Industrial just does not seem to be the best use there. And, based on my experience, it would be a huge mistake for the city to maintain that as industrially zoned property.
So I'll rely on you, Mr. Potter, to help me figure out where we're going to work together to find a big chunk of land that we can identify as an industrial center for the community. I just worry. I agree with you that this area has some upgraded development along it. It isn't all industrial, but I do think we've got a big challenge here. So,
Assemblywoman Selkirk, I'd love to at some point maybe have either a separate sit down or maybe a work session with the Assembly to talk about that very issue.
That would be great.
Both the study that was done that suggests that we have run out of industrial land and it's a huge problem, where in fact it's my opinion that is not the case. We've got lots of property. And as you move forward as P&Z and the administration and the Assembly ultimately looks at the West Anchorage District Plan, don't forget that you've got 4,000 to 5,000 acres very close by that doesn't get designated as anything in the comprehensive plans and has not been addressed in the 2020 plan or anything else, with deep water, good soils, very close to the airport. And we'll have power soon from a turbine-generated basis, wind turbine. So you've got a mysterious 4,000 to 5,000 acres called Fire Island, which can be developed for about $100 million for the causeway, and that's a heck of a lot better use of money than the Knickarm Crossing. So there's all kinds of answers besides all the property going up towards Eklutna that has rail and highway interchange access. So, it's my belief that I can show you that, in fact, the town is very capable of supporting itself into the future, as well as helping you understand why there's not a lot of big industrial users putting warehouse and distribution centers here, because they can get twice as good a space for half the price in Tukwila and Tacoma. They have to transport the goods up here anyway, so that cost is the same. And why would you come here if you can operate in a better facility that's got better ties to transportation than here? So we are different than Kansas.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Seeing no further discussion, is there objection to approval? Seeing no objection to approval, this item passes 10-0. The next item before us is another rezone. This is AO 135. This is amending the zoning map and rezoning approximately 1.15 acres from R3 and PLI to PLI for the Conroy Rushton Subdivision Number 1, Block 9A, and Littner Subdivision, Lot 35A. If you'd like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Hello. I'm John Clark for the Manager of Capital Projects Division of Maintenance Operations, and I just request that you approve this rezoning, and that's all I asked.
Okay.
If you have any questions.
At this time, there appear to be no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to us on this matter? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. The matter is before us. Is there discussion?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only request would be that the residential properties around this site be respected and the landscaping be maintained as much as possible to protect them from the activity on the fire station lot.
Would you like to hear from planning staff about that, Ms. Drummond?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Administration, could you speak to that?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Ms. Drummond, we with the PLI district, there are some additional setbacks that they'll have to adhere to, and when it does go through public facility site plan review, those will be addressed.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Selkrig?
I know there used to be some very beautiful trees that buffered the fire station from the adjacent properties, and I'm hoping that and they came down, and actually those adjacent properties are now exposed directly to the lights of the fire station, so I'm hoping that there'll be expectations of landscaping along, particularly to buffer, kind of site screening landscape from, the sound is more significant, I think, to that neighborhood, and definitely the lights are.
Seeing no one else in queue, is there any further discussion? Is there any objection to approval? Seeing none, that matter is approved, 10-0. Thank you. The next item before us is 14E. This is AR 288. It's a resolution appropriating $1,355,307 as a grant from Department of Homeland Security, FEMA. Thank you. If anybody would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, this matter is approved, 10-0. The next matter before us is AR 290. This is a resolution appropriating $840,138 from the Federal Highway Administration. This is basically for AMATS funding. If anybody would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there discussion? Is there objection? Hearing and seeing none, that matter is approved, 10-0. We are now back at the bus fare issue, and there was a motion to approve. Ms. Drummond?
Yes, ma'am. Where's S?
No, the S version was the one moved, Mr. Birch, so we don't need to substitute. But Ms. Drummond, you had the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I understand first that there is somebody present here from Cook Inlet Tribal. If anybody has any questions for her.
Would you like to come forward, please? And Mr. Klayman has told me that he believes that he may not have a conflict of interest after the speaker. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I would ask for leave to at least be able to sit through the questions she may answer, because that may make me comfortable not feeling like I'm confused.
Okay, I'd ask you to not ask the questions then, to just listen, sir.
That's fine.
We did make a determination that he had a conflict. He talked to me in the break, and he said that potentially he might not have a conflict. And so he asked if he could just at least listen to these comments, and so I said, fine. So then we can revisit that issue if necessary. So if you could state your name and make your comments, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Assembly members, for letting me speak on this matter. My name is Kristen English, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Cook Inlet Tribal Council. I believe that many of you know that Cook Inlet Tribal Council is the largest provider of social services to what is primarily the Alaska Native community. This is an extremely important issue for the people that we serve. We did a transportation survey, and of the approximately 10,000 clients that we help each year, 60% of them do not have any transportation of their own. Our clients rely heavily on the public transportation system. We do, one of our largest departments is our employment and training department, and as part of getting people ready for work, we do provide assistance with transportation for people to get started. Each month, we give out 40 adult bus passes, 150 youth passes, and 150 day passes a month. Typically, the bus passes that we do buy on a monthly basis for our participants are gone within the first or second day of the month, and then we only have limited day pass availability from there. As it is now, with the amount of funds that we can put towards bus passes, we can only give out to an individual 3 bus passes a year. So this is going to be severely impacting to the number of people that we can serve. The majority of the bus passes that we do give out are tied to a strict work readiness program, and people have to demonstrate that they are either involved in getting back into the workforce, or they have to be actively seeking a job and spending 40 hours a week in doing so. So I would ask if there's any opportunity to reconsider this motion. I really think that in the short term it might help the budget somewhat, but I do think that the community is going to come back and feel the pinch from this, because I am certain that it's going to increase people's ability to keep jobs, and it will come back in the form of unemployment.
Mr. Drummond, you want to continue?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, Ms. English. I appreciate it.
Oh, you had questions for her?
Yeah, Ms. English, stay. I do have questions for you. Are you aware of how much in dollars your program would be impacted?
I did a quick estimate, and it will take. I was told that our current discount is $25,000 a year. I think that I was told something higher internally, but given that that's the range, my estimate is that will mean that we will have to decrease the number of people that we can serve with bus passes by about 650 a year.
Okay, 650 fewer people served.
Yes.
Of the 10,000. Or is it 6,000? I think you said 60%.
6,000 without
10,000.
transportation.
Okay.
And keep in mind in that figure that we are not entirely meeting the need as it is. We are having to turn a lot of people down because we don't have enough bus passes for people.
And do you have no other source of funds? For instance, the federal government doesn't have some kind of a transit pass program?
No, the funding that we're using is primarily federal funds, and it comes in what is called supportive services. Supportive services, being more flexible, is one of the smallest line items of funding that we have, and it has to meet a lot of different purposes. It's how we fly people back and forth. It's how we make sure kids have school clothes. So there's competing uses of it. I wouldn't say that we couldn't divert a little robbing Peter to pay Paul for this, but there's not very much else that we can do.
Okay, I'm looking for a dollar figure. Ms. Kars, do you have the dollar figure that Cook Inlet Tribal would be losing in discount if this ordinance was passed as it is before us?
Through the chair, I believe Ms. English was right. It's about $25,000 a year.
Okay. Yeah, so that is one of the major beneficiaries. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's it for now, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to know if you understand the kind of the context we're in. What we've done is we've passed a budget for the bus service that assumes this cut is in it. And now the mayor's brought forward this cut. So the dilemma, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, the dilemma before us is, do we go ahead and do this cut and maintain the bus service as stripped down as it currently is, but it, we've gotten some holidays back in it. We didn't reduce the prices of it, or do we in fact cut this program and leave the bus system whole? So you can see that the clientele you're serving are going to be feeling this either way.
Yes, and,
Yeah.
and if you're asking,
What do you think about that?
I think that the bus system, as wonderful it is not really meeting all of the needs in the community as it is. I know we have ran cafes, and it is nearly impossible unless you live just perfectly aligned with your bus stations to get to work at 7 a.m. on the People Mover. So to take off a morning shift, I don't think that's a good idea either. To take off a late night shift, then I think you have a lot of safety issues on your hands. So
Thank you. I just wanted to share with you this real big dilemma. I don't think anyone here is, at least I'm certainly not comfortable with the choice either. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for the speaker? There appear to be none. Thank you very much for
thank
coming.
you again for letting me speak.
All right. Mr. Clayman, I'm going to rule you still have the conflict because she said it's a real vital issue for.
Well, if I could be here briefly, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
My concern from the beginning was that I believed, just because I knew I had a general understanding of how it played in their program, that if they didn't have an opportunity to be heard, that I felt they were being treated unfairly by this body without hearing their concerns. And so it's my belief that because Cook Inlet Tribal Council has had an opportunity to be heard, and so I no longer feel like their concerns are being unaddressed. That was my greatest concern. If you still believe I have a conflict, I'll follow the chair's determination.
Well, my concern is we just heard from them that it's a critical item to them, and your wife works for them.
Right.
And so I guess I'll ask the body what you think to see if
the chair's ruled that the conflict still exists. That's fine. I don't see, in terms of my family itself, it's not going to affect my wife's salary either way.
Would the body like to vote on this, or are you comfortable with my existent ruling? Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm comfortable with your ruling.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm seeing nods. I'm sorry, Mr. Clayman. We're going to, all right. Okay, this item is before us. Ms. Drummond, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, wait a minute, I need clarification. The motion was, no, we just did it to postpone to the end of the meeting, so that's done, so we're fine. We're clear. Go ahead.
I had the opportunity to confer with the superintendent of schools a couple of times in the last hour, and after much discussion, we realized that the 2.5% increment to the school district budget that the Assembly okayed recently to allow them to collect tax revenues for services that the city has been providing, that they are taking over, appears to qualify that piece of this item that affects the school district's budget.
What does that mean?
And it's to the tune of, is it $7,000, Ms. Cars, the total discounts?
Through the chair, that's approximately.
Okay, for the school district. So in terms of delaying this vote in order to speak to the school district, that doesn't have to happen. Ms. Como is fine with dealing with that at their end.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this matter then, at this point? Seeing no further discussion, I think we've debated this enough. I want to put it up on the board. Please vote. This is on the S version.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, point of order.
State your point.
It appears the seconder of this motion was Ms. Johnson, who's been excused due to a conflict of interest. Perhaps we should revisit that motion prior to voting?
All right, Mr. Birch has offered to be recorded as the second.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. That was a good point to bring up. That was a valid point. All right. Please vote. That matter passes, is it 8? 1, 2, I have to count.
Yep. Eight, yes.
8 to 0. Thank you. All right. That finishes the agenda. I understand there are some other items. Go ahead, Ms.
Madam Chair, I have two amendments I'd like to bring forward, or one amendment I'd like to bring forward regarding the capital budget, the 2010 capital budget.
And Ms.
Yes.
Just so great. We're going to need legal on this. Basically, if you don't, is
Sure.
this okay?
Why don't I explain what I want to do, and then we'll ask the question.
All right.
Okay. Rather than override or work to override the mayor's veto, what I would prefer to do is let his veto stand, but go back and amend the capital budget for 2010 to reflect Pine Street back in it, and have it reflected as a state legislative project, which allows us some time, actually, to resolve where the funding comes from between now and when we do our bonding.
Thank you. And on the break, when Dr. Selcraig and I talked about this, I advised her that what she needs to do is to move to reconsider the capital budget and then move to amend it by including this, the way she stated. My concern, and the reason I'm asking you for legal, is there was a move for immediate reconsideration when we passed the capital. So the question to you is, can we instead deal with this matter by providing a notice of intent to amend an action previously adopted, or how would you suggest we get through this?
Can I make a suggestion first, attorneys?
Please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. I had the occasion to talk to Mr. Lamson during the break, Dr. Selcraig, and this is in our state legislative package. We're asking the state to help match this project, and so it's already in our state project. Because, there's nothing on the floor or on the agenda in front of us, if you wanted to bring forth an amendment, at the next meeting that puts it, back into the CIP as a state-funded project, we wouldn't object to that. But it is in our state legislative program now, looking for match money on it.
I'm happy to take that approach. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand. I just, procedurally, I'm not still a little unclear how to handle it, since
we just
the capital
budget.
You're talking about the capital budget, Mr. Mayor?
Well, yes, our state legislative program is asking the state for half of the money.
Right.
And then we could, at the next meeting, amend our capital budget to say that this would be a state-funded project. We would just change a B to an S, essentially, in the...
Okay, so...
It's currently an item in the budget. It's
Yeah.
just a designation of the funding that needs to be changed. It's in the plan.
It's in the legislative plan. Is it in the capital budget?
Yes. I did both of those things at the same time when I brought the amendment, when I brought the amendment forward.
Yeah. Well, what we vetoed was the capital budget, so it's not in the capital budget at this moment.
But it's in the plan. It's in the capital plan still. So it's just a matter of changing the designation for the funding at our next meeting. No?
All right.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'll let the attorneys answer that part, but
Thank you, sir. All right. We need to hear from our attorneys now, please.
Through the chair, I'd like to restate what I think the question is.
Please.
It's my understanding from what's been discussed is that an amendment is going to be needed to the capital budget from the way it stands now after veto. And instead of overriding the veto, the other options that have been discussed are reconsideration, which is not available because our code specifically says that once it's been reconsidered, that doesn't happen. You can't have another reconsideration. Or two, an amendment, as you, Madam Chair, have suggested, an amendment of something previously considered. And what would happen to get that is that tonight there would be notice to the body that at the next meeting, there would be a motion made at the next meeting to consider the capital budget which has previously been adopted. Okay. And then at that next meeting, if notice is given at this meeting, then it may mean that you would have majority vote instead of a supermajority vote to have it pass. I have to look at the code because we have one member who's missing tonight, and I'm not sure on that notice provision off the top of my head if everybody has to be present or if it can just be, stated publicly whether that person is present or not. But I think that my opinion would be that if you're going to change an item in the budget to designate it from one classification of funding to another classification, that you go through the process of amending something previously considered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, and I would like to move that I'm noticing the body that I will be bringing forward at our next meeting a amendment to a reconsideration of our capital budget, which has previously been adopted.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we can really make this simple. We revise the operating budget all the time, and we revise the capital budget. So what I would suggest is that we don't need to do this notice thing, and all Dr. Selkirk has to do is at the next meeting to have a resolution revising the capital budget with the change that she wishes to make. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Well, at this time, I think we've covered both of our bases. There's been a notice made of intent to amend, plus there's a suggestion to simply do a resolution, but it would be at the next meeting. Mr. Wheeler, would you like to chime in?
Through the chair, I hate to miss out on an opportunity like this. Please note that there are two pieces of legislation at issue, both the program and the budget. So you're presumably going to want to keep those two things consistent, number one. Number two, I think if you're going to give notice tonight, I think you need to have something that can constitute a title for what you're proposing to do. Either you're going to have an AO amendment or an AR amendment or both, if you're going to affect both the budget and the program.
Right. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Selkirk, is that this project is in the program. It's just the veto was specifically to the budget. Is that correct?
Did you veto?
Madam Chair, that's not correct. It's a veto of both.
It was a veto of both.
Okay. So I would like to also give notice to this body that I plan to bring forward an amendment to the program at our next meeting as well, the capital improvement program as well. And if it can be done more simply through Ms. Gray-Jackson's advice between now and then, I will certainly take that path. But I think there's a clear intention of what the goal here is, and in the next couple of weeks we're bound to sort it out.
Okay. Ms. Tucker, could you give us the specific wording for the motion? Ms. Tucker? Could you type up the specific wording for the notice of intent to amend with the title? Is that possible? Thank you.
Through the chair, yes.
All right. Could we, and just a moment. Yes. All right. Would the body mind giving about a 3 or 4 minute break for the correct wording for that motion to be supplied to us?
I have another item.
Why don't you go ahead and state your other item?
I'd like to move to override the mayor's veto of the $50,000 to the library budget.
Second.
Is there discussion? Well, it's a move to override. Is there discussion? I'm looking, clerk. I think there is discussion if anyone would like to. No? Seeing no discussion, I'm going to put it on the board. Please vote. You didn't. It was a motion made by Dr. Selkrig.
Seconded by Gutierrez.
They've already voted. Can you record the vote now?
It passes.
The override was approved, 8-2. All right. At this point, Mr. Clayman, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I would move. It gets to some of the same question, but I had a question for Assembly Council. In looking at the charter provisions, it talks about the mayor's line item veto power as to a budget. I'm confused as to why that also extends to a plan that isn't a budget. I mean, it seems to me that we amended the plan in one action and the budget in a second action, and it seems to me the line item veto power extends to the budget, but doesn't extend to the plan, that the option is to veto the whole plan or not, but that there's not the authority to do that, and that's a question that I had for Assembly Council.
Could Assembly Council and Municipal Council opine on this, please?
Through the chair, Assemblymember Clayman, I looked at prior practice with respect to vetoes and specifically with respect to the capital program and capital budget, and those vetoes were exercised in such a way that both the program and the budget were simultaneously vetoed by line item.
All right. Well, in light of that, then I would move to override the veto on the Sand Lake ambulance. And is the chair's preference that I'd make it both plan and budget in the same motion, or does the
That
chair
would be
want?
simplest.
All right. I'll make a motion to override the mayor's veto as to the Sand Lake ambulance, both in the plan and the budget for the
Second.
capital purposes.
If we would punch the buttons here, that would be
Oh.
good. Thank you.
All right. That item is before us for discussion. Dr. Selkrig, you're first? You're not? Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, we discussed this at length, obviously, before, but as the fire chief mentioned, you know, we will not have staff available to man that apparatus, and it just is 1 year ahead of itself. We agreed that in the 2011 capital budget we would move that forward, but we don't anticipate having either the funding or the personnel available when that equipment would be purchased in order to staff it. So it's just a year ahead of its time.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could ask the fire department's representative to come forward.
Hi.
Thank you very much. I'm unclear as to where the next closest ambulance is currently stationed and staffed.
You can, if you start with your name, please.
Yes, Michelle Weston, Anchorage Fire Department. Through the chair, the next closest ambulance is in Spenard, and then the other ambulance would be at Station 12.
That's the Diamond
Yes.
Frontage Road station. What's out at Bayshore?
At Bayshore, at the Southport Station, there's an engine company.
But no ambulance?
No ambulance.
So they don't provide a backup either. So Spenard is the closest?
It's the closest transport unit. There are often paramedics on the Southport ambulance. So people will get paramedic care, but they will not get the transport unit.
So they have to wait. If they will get paramedic care, but they have to wait for a transport unit. Can that come from the private sector?
No.
Okay, so it has to come. So a fire department ambulance has to follow the paramedics out there
Yes.
from wherever else
Yes.
it is.
And it's not unusual for us to have stations that only have are only staffed by an engine company.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Mr. Clayman?
I would just urge a yes vote on the vote to override. Part of putting it in the 2010 capital program doesn't require the city to purchase the ambulance at the beginning of 2010. It puts the city in a place where hopefully they've been able to come up with a means to replace some of the firefighters that are resigning, and hopefully that puts them in a position to start the purchase process sooner than later when they identify a time that they can actually staff the ambulance. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, please vote. And that motion to override fails 6-4.
Madam Chair, I'd also move to override the mayor's veto on the arts budget. It's 100, and I think he cut 124,330, but it's whatever figure he line item down on the arts. Just a second.
Thank you. I was kind of waiting for that. All right. Is there any discussion on that matter? Mr. Kleiman, do you want to say anything?
I said it all at the last meeting.
All right. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As the body remembers, we, in our budget agreement, we did add $150,000 back into that category. And as we all know, virtually every department, every area of the city is taking some of the burden, if you will, for the revenue shortfalls and the expenditure increases that were incurred and that make this budget so challenging. So adding the 150 back in addition to the community grants that we already had in the original budget, I think was a pretty fair deal that we worked in getting the budget passed, and anything more really is unfair to those other areas that actually are participating in helping solve the problem.
All right. Please vote. And that one fails 5-4, 5-5. All right. Do we have any other business? Ms. Tucker, how are you coming on our wording?
Chair, I'm not complete yet.
All right. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make in general? Happy holidays. Yeah, that's a good one, Ms. Johnson.
I have one.
Go ahead.
I'm celebrating my son's graduation on Saturday. He's graduating from college. I'm very, very pleased. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Joseph, yay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. Last one's out of college.
Mr. Flynn, UNQ.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we have a couple minutes, I'd just like to note it's been I would say, an unprecedented year in municipal governance, given all the excitement we've dealt with from who sits in what chair and the revenue situations we've dealt with and the budgetary issues we've dealt with. And through that process, I've had the pleasure of working with each of you on various matters, and I just want to thank all of you for making, I would say, a difficult situation as good as it could have been. And since we won't see each other except for a work session on Friday, wish you all a happy holiday season and a prosperous new year.
Thank you. Mr. Kleiman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, I would move to reorganize the Assembly leadership.
Second.
There's a move to reorganize the Assembly before us. Is there discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Gutierrez.
I move to nominate Mr. Flynn as chair.
Just a moment.
Discussion on the motion.
Hold on a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Starr.
And I guess the point is what? Typically, we do this after election results in April. Is that something you're trying to start a new trend towards year end?
Mr. Starr, interestingly enough, when I was serving as mayor, this body decided to change the rule and make it so that Assembly leadership could be changed at any time, including a provision that no notice was required. And so by the ordinance that this body passed, the Assembly can change leadership at any time it chooses, and that's the will. I believe that's the interest of the body.
Is there any further discussion?
Bah humbug.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. All right. At this point, I'll put on the board. Is there a desire to reconsider, or I'm sorry, to reorganize? Please vote. And that motion passes 6-4.
Madam Chair, now I will make my motion.
Please make your motion.
I nominate Mr. Flynn for chair.
Mr. Flynn has been nominated for chair.
That doesn't need a second.
It does not need a second. Are there any other nominations for chair? Ms. Johnston. I have been nominated for chair. Madam Clerk, our procedures require a secret ballot. Are there any other nominations for chair? Seeing no further nominations for chair, please vote and then hand your ballots to Ms. Duke.
Madam Chair, the vote is 6 for Mr. Flynn and 4 for Ms. Osiander.
Chair.
I'm sorry. I was just going to announce that Mr. Flynn is the new chair of the Assembly.
Use the mic right now.
And I'm going to pass him the gavel, and I'm going to ask if, considering we've got 5 more minutes, I could keep sitting here for a few minutes.
Please do.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, you have control of the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any motions for vice chair?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that Assembly.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Are you chair right now?
Yeah, but Mr. Chair.
I'm
now.
sorry. Mr. Chairman, I move that Assemblymember Mike Gutierrez be nominated for Vice Chair of the Anchorage Assembly.
Mr. Gutierrez has been nominated for vice chair. Are there any further nominations?
It's Mr. Flynn.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Elvie Gray Jackson for vice chair.
Ms. Gray Jackson has been nominated for vice chair. Are there any further nominations? Ms. Osiander?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Johnston for vice chair.
Ms. Johnston has been nominated. Are there any further nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Assemblymember Drummond for nominating me. I'm truly honored, but I would like to decline that nomination. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Ms. Drummond.
I object, but I can't keep you from declining. Thank you.
Habits are hard to break. Are there any further nominations besides Mr. Gutierrez and Ms. Johnston? Okay, Ms. Duke is passing out ballots. Please mark them and return them to her. Thank you.
Can't see the request to speak. He's the chair.
I'm not asking to speak.
I am.
Do you want to speak?
Yeah, but I gotta wait.
You want to speak before the vote?
The vote is 7 for Mr. Gutierrez and 3 for Ms. Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Osiander, do you have a comment?
I do. I guess I have mixed feelings here. First, I want to assure the body that I certainly tried my best to be fair in this office. I know that we had some very difficult issues during my tenure, and I tried as best I could to listen to everyone and to be responsive to everyone. So have to admit I'm a bit disheartened that there was a sense that I needed to be replaced now. But I know that we have very diverse opinions, and I know that frequently I vote in the minority on issues. So I'm not taking it personally, but I certainly will pledge that I'll continue to try to work as best I can with everyone on this body. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Just a point of personal privilege. I have some items to present both to Ms. Osiander and to Ms. Drummond for their service not only to this body, but to all of the citizens. It has been, as you pointed out earlier, a very trying year for all of us. We've had a lot of issues to deal with that assemblies have not had to deal with in quite some time, or ever, as a matter of fact, with regard to having a 10-member body for a 6-month period of time. So on behalf of the body, if the body will indulge me, have a gavel to present to Ms. Osiander and thanking her for her service to the Assembly and to the municipality. And if Shaylin, if you would come forward, we have some flowers for Ms. Drummond. Thank you very much.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Osiander for her leadership role. Ms. Osiander, you did a fine job, regardless to how you might be feeling right now. You really did, and I appreciated having you as our leader. And I'm welcoming our new leader, Mr. Flynn, and Ms. Drummond, ditto to you. Thank you very much for your leadership, and I welcome Mr. Gutierrez and in his role as vice chair. Thank you.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. It has been, I agree, an amazing year in many respects, and it has really literally flown by. I appreciate so much the help from the staff, from my fellow Assembly members, and most particularly Ms. Osiander. You have done an awesome job as chair through difficult times, especially those 600 people that testified on 64. That was definitely unprecedented, I would say, in this body. And I think Mr. Flynn will have a lot to learn that he has no clue that he's going to have to deal with. I certainly did as acting chair in the spring, and as Ms. Osiander has been dealing within the past. So thank you all, and to all a good night.
Dr. Selcraig.
I would like to say that it's been a pleasure to get to know Debbie Osiander as a chair. I think she's been fair and hardworking, and the thing that you can rely on is this commitment that Debbie brings to the table to do the right thing for the public. And the hard thing about politics is that we all have a different perception of what the right thing is. And I guess what I want to say is that my hunch is that that Debbie not being chair and us defining a new chair has less to do with Debbie than just the structure of the political field right now, that we have a strong and capable mayor who has hit the scene and who is engaging in change. And we have 6 votes on the Assembly that doesn't always agree with him. And what's really happening is that I think that the 6 votes are saying, you know, to balance out that power structure, we need to reorganize to make sure that we can affect the agenda, that we can be engaged. And so, in a sense, I think this is bigger, Ms. Osiander, than you are, and is not in any way, in my opinion, a measure of you at all. I have been very proud of you and like you, and I look forward to knowing you for a long time. So thanks for your service. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Clayman?
Thank you. I will remark, as I have said many times, that the 11 members of this body are engaged in a common endeavor, and that common endeavor is how democracy works, and it's how we move the city forward. And it recognizes that we don't always agree, but that we don't come here with any hidden agendas. We come here trying to do the best we can for this city. And I want to personally thank Ms. Osiander for her incredibly hard work as chair. Those of us who have served as chair of this body know that it is more work than, certainly more work than we get paid to do, and more work than the job description would ever let anyone imagine. So I know how hard she's worked, and I applaud her for all that work and look forward to continuing to work with her on this body. Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you. Mr. Birch?
Well, there's a comment about no hidden agenda, but I have to say this was pretty well hidden from me. I would also add my thanks and appreciation for Ms. Osiander for the leadership she's exhibited here in the Assembly. And I guess I'm disappointed with the way this has turned out, but as we all do, we move forward. And with that, I would wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a joyous holiday season. And I would move to adjourn.
Mr. Birch, I think that motion is premature. We have the motion that, from Dr. Selcraig that we need to address before we adjourn. Ms. Drummond?
Okay. Remember that we operate under the Open Meetings Act, and it makes it difficult for us to talk to one another. And I know I've been operating under the Open Meetings Act for now 11 and a half years as an elected person in Anchorage, and have been before the Ethics Commission a couple of times, and I'm very careful in my interpretation of the Open Meetings Act and how we have discussions amongst our membership. And I'd like to advise you all to read that over the holiday period and understand how it applies to us in terms of letting everybody know what's happening. We are not members of the public who can speak to anybody at any time in any number. We are limited in our communications. Thank you.
Sort of like it was the night before Christmas when all through the house and a creature was stirring, especially not for so many members in the same room without being noticed. Okay, very good. Ms. Johnston, you had a comment?
I just kind of feel I need to say thank you to Debbie also. I think Debbie's done we've been an assembly that has been somewhat polarized this year, and it's very sad. But I think Debbie's done an unbelievable job of bridging that polarization. And even as a minority vote, sometimes she made sure that she knew that she was a minority vote, but she was chairman first. And I really felt that she did a great job as chairman, and I'm sorry to see her go. Merry Christmas.
Ms. Tucker, do we have the language we need for our motion? I'll take that as an almost. So if I may, Ms. Osiander, allow me to add my kudos to your excellent work. Watching you for the past 6 months, I know I have enormous shoes to fill, despite the fact I'm a little bit bigger than you are, and appreciate all your good efforts on behalf of this community. And with that, I will await Ms. Tucker's language, and I think we need we're going to take about a 2-minute at ease.
Mr. Chairman, prior to that, was just on the way over this evening, the weather's been a little bit brutal today, and just remind Assembly members, please be cautious driving home. I saw a lot of accidents on the way here. It's going to be one of those nights.
And I just want to say, if you're going to do a reorder of the seating, I want to have time to clean out my drawer, my half of the drawer.
No taking my almonds. We'll take a 2-minute at ease. The resolution to be laid on the table tonight.
I move a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Resolution 2009-242, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage approving the 2010-2015 government capital improvement, general government capital improvement program.
Second.
All right. We have that introduced. Is there anything else we need to do? Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, we're working on the body, but what it says is, now therefore be it resolved by the Anchorage Assembly that the capital program is amended so that the Pine Street 4th Avenue area storm reconstruction improvement is placed in fiscal year 2010 and is state funded instead of bond funded.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Wheeler. Any questions? All right. With that, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Any objection? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a happy holiday.